Welcome back, guys. This is Miss Brooks in our social studies video for this week. Sorry it's been a little crazy this week with things going on. I know you guys are probably not as relaxed as I am. Honestly, I'm not that relaxed, so I'm going to say it's safe to assume that you guys are stressed out too, and my heart goes out to you guys just because you guys have never really experienced this before. I've never experienced this before, but we're going to get through it together. For you guys who are participating, and I'm constantly hearing from you guys, and you guys are excited, and you joined the Google Hangout that happened last time. Thank you so much for doing that. Just seeing your guys' faces just makes me happy. Shout out to Keegan, Mackenzie, and Jake for that. I'm pretty sure I shouted them out in the last video too. So, before we get into social studies for a little bit, it is going to be a little hectic this week. After we get done with a lot of the the Egyptian mythology and reviewing some of the other Egyptian questions that were on the Kane Chronicles Quiz 1 that you should have done from the last video, we're going to do the ancient Egyptian knowledge part in this video, and then go over some more of the gods and mythology. And then we get into the fun part with let's see, you should have done the I Wonders already. You should have done that yesterday. Map, don't worry about that. That's just to help you guys. Question and answer, the mummification process. Yes. So you guys, within the next few days, tomorrow, which is Wednesday, Thursday, possibly Friday, we're going to go through the mummification process, which really, it's insane. You're going to think, wow, why did they do that? Why did they think that was okay? And why is it so gruesome? I mean, that was their way of life, and we're going to keep learning about that. But for now, we are going to continue on the ancient Egyptian knowledge. Some of this is already review for you guys, which, if you're following along, yes. But we're also going to be learning more about ancient Egyptian gods and goddesses, some more of those, because those are really important, and we can kind of relate them to Greek a little bit. So let's go ahead and get started. Now let's get started. I needed my tea. As you guys know, I'm obsessed with sweet tea. Like, if I could just live on sweet tea the rest of my life, I could. Okay, so ancient Egyptian knowledge, choose the best answer. We had another one very similar to this in the last time, and you're going to see on map test, K-Prep, ACT, everything, choose the best answer. So there might be more than one answer, but you need to pick the best one. And all of these that have underlines, like where you write, I need them in full sentences, people, where you restate the question, because we still need to practice that. And who knows, I might be checking them and might be putting them for a grade. Who knows? So let's keep looking at this. Number 21. So we're on the second page of the quiz, right near the bottom. Why did the Pharaoh and Amos live on the east shore? Now, some of you guys covered this and some of you didn't. Why did the Pharaoh and Amos live on the east shore? The Pharaoh, if you remember, that's Sadie and Carter's mom. It's their parents, so the grandparents. Why did they live on the east side of the shore? So if you look at the map in your little packet, there's the Nile, okay? And there's the east and the west side. The east side had a lot of the civilizations, had a lot of the, well, actually, yes, the east side of the shore had a lot of the pyramids and all the other stuff. It was mainly for protection, because what the Egyptians believed was on the west side was what they believed on the west side, that was practically the land of the dead. They would store all of the mummies and the bodies over on the west side of the river. And that's also the side with the Valley of the Kings. So if you don't remember what the Valley of the Kings was, that's where a lot of the New Kingdom pharaohs were buried. So King Tut was found in the Valley of the Kings. Nefertiti was found in the Valley of the Kings. Ramses II was found in the Valley of the Kings. So all of those New Kingdom pharaohs, they were found there. But again, a lot of the bodies were found on the west side, so they lived on the east side because it was like good luck or protection of some sort. So with these, I'm literally giving you the answer. They're also in the book, which, again, I love the accuracy that they have with this one. With Percy Jackson, they think that, like, Perseus was, they made Perseus out to be, like, that was Poseidon's child. That was not the myth, the actual Greek myth. That was Zeus's child. That was a, demigod. Just had a little bit of powers, not too much. Did a lot of crazy stuff. Not too bad. Hercules was even the Disney version of Hercules. Whew, we might still have to watch that. Anyway, back to Egyptian mythology. 22. What is the Rosetta Stone? Who discovered it? And why is it important? So if you remember, the Rosetta Stone is the big stone slab that on the top portion it has hieroglyphics. In the middle it has Demotic, which is kind of like a slang language of like a mix of Egyptian and Greek. And then at the bottom it has Greek, and it's all the same thing. Who discovered it? It was a soldier in Napoleon's army in 1799. When they tried to when they had Egypt under conquerization right then. Why is it important? That's the first form of translation of anything Egyptian that we have. So because of that, we finally understand what those hieroglyphs mean, and we can actually learn more about their culture. So that is really, really important. Question number 23. A stone pillar, so if you don't know what a pillar is, it's kind of like a column, typically having a square or rectangular cross section and a pyramidal top set up as a monument or a landmark. I've mentioned this, and it has the hieroglyphs on the side. So it's kind of square or rectangular. Sorry, my phone's going off. Again, stressful. So it's kind of rectangular, and it goes all the way up until the very top, where it goes into kind of like a tiny little pyramid shape. And then it has the hieroglyphs on all sides. That is an obelisk. That is not a pyramid, because it's not triangle. It's not pyramid. It's not a like triangular prism all the way around. It is straight up, and then a small one up top. I just really needed. Sorry about that. An obelisk. So we actually have one. I will try and send pictures actually on Google Classroom of the obelisk in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. That's where I grew up. That's where my parents are. So it's kind of sentimental. So I will find that, and I'll send you guys an example of obelisks. It's not a reflection pool, because a pool is not shaped like a pyramid or a square. Unless you're doing an underground pool, which those sound amazing right now. Pyramid, obviously not a pyramid. Sarcophagus, obviously that's a coffin, like decorated with jewels and everything. Number 24, a stone coffin, typically adorned with a sculpture or inscription, like someone writing on it. And associated with ancient civilizations, Julius is trapped in one of these. So if you remember, it is a sarcophagus. So that, I mean, you could automatically eliminate Obelisk because we already said that. Pyramid, you can't get trapped in a pyramid. It's too big. It's not a coffin. And a pool is not a coffin. So sarcophagus. A lot of these were adorned to look like whatever the pharaoh looked like, or whoever was inside that sarcophagus, adorned with jewels, straight gold, limestone, everything. And yes, these sarcophaguses were made of straight stone, so they were just heavy to begin with. So let's move on to the next page. What is the Ankh the symbol for? Cats, life, death, or house. If you remember, the pear Ankh, which we learned about, it's also mentioned in the book. It is the house of life. So yes, life. And when I say the Ankh is a symbol of life after death, ultimately don't focus on the death part, because they didn't focus on that so much as the life you had after you died. So life in general is what the Ankh was a symbol of. 26, what is Egyptian paper called? You should remember this. It's called papyrus. It's a water reed stem. If you think about it, it's part of a plant that you would find in the water. So they would have to go in the water and pull these suckers out. And they're hard to begin with. I kind of think it's like, I kind of relate them to bamboo a little bit, just because they're sturdy and they're so hard to manage. But once you turn it into paper, it's pretty neat. 27, one of the oldest Egyptian artifacts that shows the first pharaoh uniting Upper and Lower Egypt is called the, okay, we can automatically eliminate obelisk and sarcophagus because we already have those. So we just have Great Pyramid and Narmer palette, which, if you look, the Great Pyramid, yes, it was for the first pharaoh, but really, does it symbolize specifically him uniting Upper Egypt with Lower Egypt? No. So yes, it would be the Narmer palette. Basically, this is just a stone slab with pictures representing the first pharaoh the first pharaoh that united both sides of Egypt. I think it's a pretty cool photo. I think the artwork is just beautiful. What is the river in Egypt called? We should know this. It's the Nile. The Tigris, Euphrates, and the Amazon. Completely different sections of the world. What is a Shakti? That's how you say it, is a Shakti. It's either a carrier, answerer, doll, or mummy. We obviously know it's not a mummy. And it wouldn't really make sense to be a carrier or an answerer. So you can eliminate those. It is a doll. They're like little dolls that would represent whoever died or the gods that aid them into the afterlife. And they would set them in the tomb with the sarcophagus and the mummy. So that's the Shakti. They're like little stone like figures. If you think of like G.I. Joe or Barbie, and these were the Barbies of ancient Egyptian time. I think that's kind of funny to remember. Okay, now we're getting into the gods and goddesses again. So some of these are actually monsters too. We are going to be going more as time goes on, but I just want to focus on some of these. We already know that Horus is the god of the sky and royal protection. Horus's eye, the Egyptian eye that we always refer back to, that's Horus. Falcon head, Osiris. Osiris has to be one of my faves. For some reason, I just like gods of the underworld, apparently. He is one of my favorites. God over the underworld and the dead. He is basically, if you think of a judge, and he's just like, all right, you did this, well, you're going to jail. Or, oh, you're just going to be put on probation or something. Like in a courtroom, that was Osiris' job. He sat down and he looked over someone's life to see if they were even eligible to have their afterlife. So that was Osiris' job. If you look at the next two, Nut and Geb, so these were, I never mentioned these, but Nut and Geb in regular mythology times, they were the first god and the first goddess that they believed to have existed in ancient Egyptian time. So before any of the other gods and goddesses were born, these were the ones that started it all. So Geb is the god of snakes. So that's how we get the association with a lot of snakes in ancient Egypt. Cobras, everything like that. And then Nut was the sky, stars, and astrology goddess. So those of you who like astrology, and I have that poster in my room of astrology, you can thank the sky goddess Nut for that. You can also say Newt. Whatever pronunciation you think is better. Just remember that Newt or Nut is the sky goddess. She is a goddess. And then Geb is the god. First ones, they had children. They were the mother and father of Ra, the mother and father of Osiris, the mother and father of Isis, of Set, the big ones. You can think of them as titans almost, but really they were actually much stronger and very, very much like nicer. And they were just like, all right, we're going to give our power to our children now. Like it's their job. So they were a little more subtle. I would also like to mention that if you see repeats of certain gods or goddesses, like being a goddess, a god or goddess of the sky is really popular. That's just how ancient Egyptian rolled. We're still not sure why they had multiple gods and goddesses for the same thing. Some believe it's for like extra protection, or extra support. We're still not sure about that. Cons or cones, which, another form of his name is Khonsu. You can say either one. Khonsu is Kohnssu. He is the god of the moon, and he is also known as the traveler. So he's just like, oh, I travel everywhere. Really, there's not many stories on him. He's not very popular at all. And this is one of the gods you're definitely going to have to know, and this is Set. Set is the god of chaos and thunder. Really, I think Zeus, I mean, they got some similarities. They have bad tempers. Set, he is known for having an animal head. However, the head of Set, they only describe as a beast, like a mix between a dog with fangs of a lion, and it's crazy. They just say he has a beast kind of head. To me, I always used to get confused with Set and Anubis, just because in depictions they have similar heads, but you really have to look closely. They are not the same people. Apophis. Apophis is actually not a god or goddess. He is actually a large serpent. Again, this is just mythology, but in a previous video, when we were talking about the 24-hour-a-day system with ancient Egypt, we talked about Ra's journey. So, really, it would start in a circle. And each hour of the day was a different kingdom. So, say this is the line. I know it's a little weird, but say this is the line. And there are two mountains on either side is how the myth actually works. So at the start of the day, he goes through Kingdom 1. That's 1 hour. Kingdom 2, Kingdom 3, Kingdom 4. And he goes all the way up. This is the daytime until he sets 12 hours later. And then he has 12 hours to go into the night or the underworld. So if you think there's a mountain over here called Baku, and then you go all the way over here, and there's a mountain called Manu. So he goes from Baku, 12 hours later, he's in Manu. And then there's 12 kingdoms that he goes at night. Right here is where he meets Apophis each time. And he luckily has assistance in telling Apophis to back off. But that's where Apophis comes in, is the large serpent that he encounters in the underworld. So you think Kerberos in the underworld, it's Apophis here. Bast, you guys should have met Bast. If not, she is the goddess of cats. She's the protector of the home, and she's the goddess of fertility. So growing things, and really there's a lot of fertility goddesses, but the biggest thing is cats and the protector of the home. So if you should remember where Bast is in the book, surely. And then for 38, Serket. She's a little weird. Not much is said about her. The biggest thing is she's a scorpion goddess. So a lot of times with Egyptian mythology too, we talk about snakes. We talk about cats. We talk about scorpions and crocodiles. Those are like the 4 things that remind us of ancient Egypt. Scorpion, you can thank Serket for. She really doesn't do much. I think she's just there to intimidate, like to threaten people. I do want to tell you guys, this isn't all the goddesses we're going to be covering, just because you do have other quizzes, and they do have they do have other, why am I blanking here? We do have other ones to go over. I'm just going to go over those. I'm just going to go over those real quick. Nothing big. You can take notes if you want. Just get it over with. Hathor. Hathor, surprisingly with the masculine name, is actually a goddess. And she's the goddess of love and women. So, she's also a protector goddess, protector of women. Hathor, again, we don't hear much of. Let me show you a picture of Hathor. Let's see. Hathor. It's hard when you're on your computer and you can't screen grab a picture there. This is a picture of Hathor. Again, just a simple woman. But if you notice too, she has a very similar sun being to Ra. So that's very similar. Sobek, you guys should have seen Sobek. This is one of the subjects that I wish I was in class to talk about, just so I could show you a bunch of pictures and tell you a bunch of myths, but I am limited on time, so that sucks. Again, you guys should know Sobek. Just to remind you what Sobek likes, he is the god of the Nile. the Nile River. So really, that kind of makes sense, and that's actually appropriate because he is a crocodile, and crocodiles love the water. Just remember that much. Thoth, you guys should have seen Thoth in the book, The God of Knowledge. His head is kind of like a crane. He will also represent the House of Life, along with many others. Back in ancient Egypt, they did have a temple for the House of Life, and that's where all the doctors and all the scribes went. So it makes sense for medicine and for doctors to go to the House of Life to study. And here's my favorite part about ancient Egypt, and we'll get to this too. Girls, you can have any of the same jobs as boys can, as long as your family was born into that profession. So if your father was a scribe, you would become a scribe. If your father was a servant, all you could get was a servant. If your father or mother were doctors, you could be doctors. It was all based on where your family was in the hierarchy of things. But overall, women were treated equally to men. Awesome! Love it. Now some of the boys I'm already hearing in the background, and I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear that. Oh, why? Nope, don't want to hear it. Equality, man. All right. Just a few more things. Oh, I spelled this one wrong. Sekhmet. A lot of people are going to like Sekhmet. Sekhmet has the head of a lion. Yes, a lion. She is the goddess of war, but also healing. Because when you get hurt, you gotta heal somehow, or you're just gonna die. So the myth behind the creation of her, she actually was born from Ra's eye. So Ra, at this point, it's not like he was not aging. The Egyptian gods could still age, but they didn't age and then die. It's weird. They just continuously aged. And Ra went kind of a little cuckoo. He was just a little crazy. And the Egyptians were like, oh, I don't know if we want to focus on Ra a little bit more, but we like Osiris. Osiris is pretty cool. So Ra goes to his father, which Geb, he goes to his father and he's just like, Dad, they're not respecting me. What do I do? And he's just like, well, take out your eyeball and see what happens. Yes, take out your eyeball and see what happens. So what happens is Ra is just like, all right, now I'll finally do what you ask. But he takes out his eyeball, and then magic swirls around it, and there, born is Sekhmet. And she starts going crazy until they find a potion, and finally she kind of calms down a little bit. She still fights a lot, and she's still the goddess of war, but healing is kind of added into the mix. Now, this is one of the hieroglyphs that represents, obviously she is born from Ra, so that's why she has the little sun symbol with the cobra. Again, Sekhmet has the head of a lion. This is kind of someone's art representation of her, which really I think is super, super neat. This kind of reminds me of like Nala from the Lion King. I just think it's cool. Sekhmet's really cool. And then next one, this one's not as popular either. And her name is a little weird. That's why it's taking me forever to even type it out. Oh, why won't it show up? Nephthys. It's Nephthys. Nephthys kind of helps Osiris judge as far as who goes into the underworld. She's the goddess of divine assistance. So really, she's just the goddess of helping people, which is great. And she looks pretty normal too. You'll start to realize a lot of the art style was the same. Someone else did their own interpretation, which I think is pretty neat. But again, don't worry about her too much. You won't learn about her too much. We'll do other projects and stuff later, but that's pretty much it for now. You don't have anything yet in the packet to do. We'll start those tomorrow. If you have any questions, just let me know before 3 o'clock. Just because we've all got to like take a breather at some point. So, all right, I will see you guys tomorrow.